Hi, I'm Anthony Mangano, and this week on City of Churches, we're visiting St. Thomas Aquinas. Hi, I'm Anthony Mangano, and welcome to City of Churches. You know, not too far from St. Thomas Aquinas Church is Floyd Bennett Field, and it's New York City's first municipal airport, and it's located on the shore of Jamaica Bay. This was one of the first two airports in New York City and began operating in 1928. A lot of aviation records were set here by people whose names might sound very familiar to you. Amelia Earhart, Howard Hughes, Jimmy Doolittle, Wiley Post, Wrong Way Corrigan, and future astronaut John Glenn. Now, it became a naval air station in 1941, and it was named after the popular aviator and World War I veteran, Floyd Bennett. Did you know that during World War II, Floyd Bennett Field became the busiest naval air station in the USA? Planes had to constantly fly in and out of here on a specific flight path. Now, did you know that there's a connection between that flight path and St. Thomas Aquinas Church? Well, we're going to discuss that later on in the show. But right now, let's head over to St. Thomas Aquinas Church to visit Father Dwayne Davis and a special historian of St. Thomas's, Chris Spinelli. Today, we're in Flatlands Brooklyn, or as they say, Flatlands, to visit St. Thomas Aquinas. So we're going to go inside and meet Father Davis and a special guest. There's a lot of history here. So come on, you're going to enjoy this. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
We're going to start right off the bat. When was this parish established?
First, it was established as a mission church of Holy Cross in 1884. 1885 really was the beginning of St. Thomas Aquinas, and as a little mission church, a little church in the front. Of course, we had our first recorded baptism on January 18, 1885.
1885. It's
well,
amazing.
now that church, and I've always been told, Father, you could back me up on this, that church was not built on that location.
Really?
So that church was moved from another location down Flatbush Avenue. It currently is the only Catholic church on Flatbush Avenue, but it was not built on site.
So
it was
moved
moved to that site in the 1800s.
Why was it named St. Thomas?
Well, I'm not quite sure why it was named St. Thomas, but I'm sure that because of who St. Thomas Aquinas is as a doctor of the church, and because he was a great theologian and philosopher, I'm sure that probably was the reason behind it. In those days, most churches were named after the pastor who was there, who the favorite saint or something of that sort. So I'm not quite sure the origin of St. Thomas Aquinas, but I'm sure that it was because of the caliber of a man that he was.
Why was the church needed in this neighborhood? I mean, growing population, because you said it was a Holy Cross first?
Yeah, so it was a mission parish of Holy Cross, and I'm sure it was a growing population at the time. Of course, most of Flatlands at the time was all farmland in the beginning, and so I'm sure that they saw that there was a need for more and more people and churches. But I think when you look at the history of St. Thomas Aquinas, in 1901, we had 150 people that was attending church, and by 1909, it was already 700. Flatland was really growing and developing, and of course, in the 60s, we had over 9,000 parishioners coming here to St. Thomas Aquinas.
This church.
Yeah.
So this is basically from when we've done St. Columba, we've done St. Bernard's, and we did Mary Queen of Heaven. I understand this was the first church that basically created all the rest of them in the neighborhood. I guess the need for more churches because there was so many people moving here.
Definitely, I think it was definitely the need between 9,000, because in 1930s we saw a lot of the other churches start to be born out of St. Thomas Aquinas. But our school here had 2,200 young people that was attending. We were like one of the biggest schools in the United States.
What were the demographics like back then?
Well, back then it was mostly Italian and Irish that were coming as a part of the parish community. And I think as some of the Italian and Irish moved out, some of the Caribbean came in, then Filipino and even some Hispanics as well. I think that's one of the greatest things about St. Thomas Aquinas is that it's very diverse.
I have to say, you've made some amazing improvements here.
I know it was basically all gray, and now when we look up the site, it's really beautiful what you did here. And I'm going to say it on camera. What do you need here desperately that you were talking to me about?
Well, we desperately need an AC. I'm hoping that somebody one day will be able to have AC, but it's going to cost us a lot of money, and we're going to try to work towards it.
You hear out there? We need a couple of benefactors here to put air conditioning in this church, because it's a beautiful church. So, how many people can you fit in here?
Well, we could fit regularly about 1,000 people here. It's interesting because on January 28th, I was installed a pastor here at St. Thomas Aquinas, and I think we had about 1,200 people in the church, and well, that's been the question everybody's been asking, how many people can actually fit? Because there was no room for anybody to sit in the church.
Standing room only.
Standing room only.
That's okay, and I understand that when you were doing the renovations, you used the entrance to the church. That was for Mass as well?
Yes, definitely. So Monsignor Brown actually began the project. That was his dream, to renovate the sanctuary area of the church. And unfortunately, he died before he was able to do much of with it. The centerpiece was done. And so we decided to complete the project for him. The plan was to rededicate the sanctuary in his honor and all the priests that came here at St. Thomas Aquinas. And for about 2 weeks or so that we were doing the renovation, we had to move the Mass to the front of the church. People actually really loved it. It's smaller, it's more community-wise, and people really loved it.
Well, you said this is a big church. The most interesting thing we were talking off camera is you said brides love to get married here because of the long entrance all the way up.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if you can't walk well, it's not that great, but I can see that from a bride's point of view.
And especially now with the sanctuary being done, we seem to be having an uptick in weddings. Back in the day we had like 3 or 4, now we're getting like 9. We have about 9 or 10 this year. I already have 5 for next year, and I already have 3 for 2020. So
if there's any brides out there that want to get married at St. Thomas, this is the place, along with all the other churches. Do you know who the architect was? You might know who this is.
No, well, we don't.
We don't know who the architect is.
No, we don't know who the architect is.
Some guy came in with mortar.
There are many stories about the architect and about the construction of the original church. I do have some old photos here.
Let me see. This is the original?
So this is the building we're currently in, and it had a 150-foot tower on the front.
Look at that. Can you see that?
And this was finished in 1931. Now, the interesting thing, apparently, when it was built during the middle of the Great Depression. The materials and the building practices back then kind of aren't what they are today, and it started to have problems immediately. So that 150-foot tower, by the time World War II approached, was actually, and here's a picture from the 1940s, the tower actually got sheared off.
Wow.
One of the reasons being that we're down the block from Floyd Bennett Field, and during World War II, they would land fighter planes down Flatbush Avenue.
The airport still, I mean, the airport exists, but nobody's landing anymore.
But when they were landing fighter planes down there, they were saying it was in the flight path, so it had to be taken down halfway. Also, there were already construction issues. This is only 10 years after it was built.
After it was built, somebody cut corners there.
And then by the 1960s, the entire tower and the whole front of this church was removed, the rose window, and then it was after Vatican II, so they started to modernize the church.
Well, I mean, you're showing pictures of the old church.
And that's the old church in the foreground. We also have pictures of the interior of the church, or what it used to look like. As you see, it's somewhat different now.
Oh, yeah.
It originally had a much more like a high Gothic
I noticed
altar.
that you had, the lighting's changed.
This was when it was modernized. In the 60s, they changed the lighting, they changed the altar. There was actually a painting that used to be where the crucifix is now, which we have out in the vestibule. At the time, post-Vatican II, the thinking was more to modernize versus restore.
And this is the altar itself?
Yes, that's the altar. And the altar rail, we have an interesting story because the altar rail itself, when they were kind of deconstructing the original church to modernize it, a lot of this stuff wound up in people's backyards. They just kind of gave it to them. So
in
the
this
statues, the statues are gone. The altar rail is actually on someone's front lawn on East 36th Street.
Really? 36 where?
36 right off of Kings Highway. You'll see a piece of the original altar rail. And people apparently had these statues in their backyard. They just gave them away. Because the thinking wasn't to restore. It was like, let's bring in the new.
Well, I know that things changed, that they said that they wanted to make it more open to the parishioners. Mm-hmm. I kind of am a little bit of old school. That I like the altar rail. I kind of liked it aesthetically, design-wise. I mean, I understand both reasons for it. but I kind of liked it. You know, like in St. Joe's Cathedral, they still have it up.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. What's this now?
And this is actually a picture of what it looked like before the paint job on the sanctuary. So you
Yeah,
could see it was
gray.
all gray.
I know, I remember. It was always
see it was all gray.
It was always dull gray. Now
Right.
you literally brightened it up with the stars. I believe those are little stars, right?
There are little stars, and it's one of the great things is a lot of parishioners come to visit their family members, and they always stop in to see what was done with the church, and it really is a beautiful thing, and the colors really pop. Everybody that comes to St. Thomas Aquinas for funerals, for wedding, whatever it is, the first thing they say to me is how beautiful the sanctuary is. And now the sanctuary, as you know, the stars in the sanctuary have been dedicated to different parishioners. Parishioners were able to buy stars. That's how we kind of paid for the sanctuary being done. So different parishioners have stars up there that represent their family or someone who has gone before them.
No, that's really nice. It's amazing. You brightened it up to some color in here that looks really nice. Which, you know, when I look around, you know, my biggest thing is stained glass windows. I always talk about this on the show. And, you know, I never really looked at them until I came in. They're actually beautiful. I mean, I don't know if you know where they came from.
There's a lot of stories about the construction of St. Thomas that I have been told by many parishioners that the stained glass windows were not original. They were not built here. They were not made for St. Thomas. That they came from another church that was demolished when they were constructing the BQE. So there were a lot of those churches where, these windows are very likely from the 1800s, and they don't really look like 1930s stained glass windows.
No.
So they built the church using, even that altar that we had seen before, the high Gothic altar was not originally built for St. Thomas. That was from another church, and they incorporated it into the design when they were creating the church in the 1930s.
You know, I always say that when they built these churches, and you said it was on farmland and everything, they built it so that when the sun would rise and set, that the light would come in and it would light up the church. But it also, and I always say this, is that you actually see stories come to life, but it has that appeal.
Well, it changes time of the day. If you're in here during the day, different times of the year, different windows catch the light in different ways.
Detail as an artist, I mean, to create something like that. Now, your front window, that's the rose?
That would have been the rose window. And the rose window, when they had done the renovations in the 60s, they actually sheared off the front of what was remaining of the tower, and they took out the rose window as well, and they put a representation of St. Thomas Aquinas up there, but it's a much more modern looking.
Yeah, you could see the difference between
it doesn't
that
really fit the, probably a 100-year difference in between the two windows.
How it's changed, it's way different, but art changes and designs change as it goes
It's definitely
along.
not as beautiful as
No,
the
which
other ones.
comes to my next question, because I've always fascinated. Now, I don't know how you feel about it, but your Stations of the Cross, I've never seen anything like it. They look like they were steel doors that somebody took, and I think they probably were, and the artist created it. I mean, they're really larger than life. They're taller than me, taller than you.
Yep. The Stations of the Cross really do have a very interesting story. People either love them or hate them in this parish. There's probably a few more that hate them than love them.
Really?
Because they're very unique. They're certainly unique. I don't think you'll find any other church in Brooklyn that has them. They were created by an artist, Geordi Bonet, and Geordi Bonet apparently had a very brief moment in time where he was very popular in creating sacred and liturgical arts, and this was in the late 60s. He died very young. He died when he only had one arm, which is probably the best story. He lost his right arm as a child.
Wow.
He only did it with his left arm, and that was his history, that he began drawing to kind of help the dexterity in his left arm, since he had lost his right arm as a child, and that's how he came to art.
That alone, the human spirit,
It's a great story.
To drive the will to do something alone is amazing right there.
And he had quite a career, because he was all over the place. He did work in the 1964 World's Fair. His work is all over Canada. He originally was born in Spain, but then emigrated to Canada, and somehow wound up in New York for a brief moment of time. So he has all the Stations of the Cross. He also did the pedestals on our altar and the reserve altar in the back. We question, he did stained glass as well. He may have done the stained glass of St. Thomas, because he did, for example, the stained glass at JFK, at the Our Lady of the Skies Chapel, which has since been decommissioned and moved. Those windows that he did for the Our Lady of the Skies wound up, when they were creating Our Lady of the Snows in Floral Park, they still had the windows that Geordi Bonet had created.
Are there any statues here?
Yeah, we do have a couple of statues. We have a statue of St. Thomas Aquinas. And recently, what we've been doing with the Feast of St. Thomas Aquinas, we move it out to the front of the sanctuary so that people are able to see it and kind of have a little bit more of a devotion with that. Of course, my favorite, St. Joseph, which is right next to the altar. And then right over in the corner, we have a Marian Shrine,
Yes.
which is a beautiful place. I think that's probably one of the favorite places here in the parish. Everybody comes and goes to the shrine to pray at Mary and to be there with her. And in fact, when you go in there, you'll see that our hands are falling apart by the amount of people that have touched her over the years. And there's a story or a legend that says that Monsignor Callahan never wanted to replace the hands because he felt that that was people's devotion and love for Mary over the years. And so when you go there, you see all the hands are kind of missing or pieces, and it's been kind of worn over the last 50 years. But another interesting thing is when you go towards the Marian Shrine is the icons. We have lots of icons that are present right there.
Well, you know, I've been in there, I've lit candles, but sometimes, like, if I try to park to come into church during the week, and you know what parking's like, I might pull up by the hydrant and I'll come in and there's the crucifix outside in the garden. And you could see where that's not just weather, but you
Sure,
just
people
saying,
touch.
people are touching it, because I've touched it myself. You sit there, I kneel, I say a prayer, and there's one or two prayers out there on the bench where you would kneel to pray.
Well, that's funny because if the church is closed, definitely, sometimes even in evenings, you'll see somebody pull their car in and
what I do.
just to run in and to say a quick prayer. So that's always a beautiful image to see as a priest coming down the steps. I'm looking out and you see the people praying there. But I think one of my other favorite image here at St. Thomas Aquinas is, the doors you can see through the doors, but when parishioners or people or Catholics in general would pass by, they can see the sanctuary from outside. And they always stop to make the sign of the cross, and that always leaves an image in my mind.
Father, when I was a kid, you had boxing matches here, and you had wrestling matches. What do you have here? What events do you have coming here? Youth services, any kind of events that the St. Thomas promotes?
Well, one of the big things is we love feasts here at St. Thomas Aquinas, so we're always eating. I think the parishioners always make fun of me that there's always food with Father Dwayne. And so...
Wait, there's nothing wrong with that. I like that, we all do, especially being Italian, but go ahead.
So we started an international feast that we have on the Feast of St. Thomas Aquinas. That's normally a big feast where we have food from all over the world. And that's always a great celebration for us. The St. Patrick's Party that we have here at St. Thomas Aquinas is always a wonderful, wonderful time. And we started a Caribbean night over the last 5 years to celebrate the Caribbean population here at St. Thomas Aquinas. We have several different things like the family day that we have normally around Father's Day. The Saturday of Father's Day, we have a big family day. And we have Fellowship Sunday. So once a month at the end of the month, we normally have Fellowship Sunday where we invite the parishioners to come. Last Sunday we had a big barbecue in the backyard of the rectory. But Fellowship Sunday is an opportunity for parishioners to gather together for coffee and cake. And sometimes it's something different. Sometimes it's kind of a themed kind of Fellowship Sunday. But we have several different events kind of throughout. A dance-a-thon that our young people have put on for sponsoring them to go to World Youth Day. That's always a fun time. The young people have a big lock-in once a year. It's normally around Lenten time. Every year, the young people are always asking us about that. One of the things that have happened, I've only been here for 5 years, and when I came, we didn't have a youth program, but the youth program has kind of grown over the years. We have about 100 young people in our youth ministry, and so that's really blossoming. And now we try to have a youth mass one Sunday a month for them at 11:30 mass, where they get to do everything from the readings to being the ushers to bring up the gifts. And it's really been a great part of the parish to kind of integrate our young people into the parish, because without our young people, we know that the parish won't flourish.
You're doing a really good job. That's really, it's like you said, without the youth coming in, we'll cease to exist. We have to pass it on. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a lot more about St. Thomas Aquinas and something very special with Father Dwayne. So we'll be right back. Well, here we are outside in the gardens of St. Thomas, and I'm with Thomas Donohue. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you. Yourself?
Thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
So, besides being a parishioner, what do you do here at St. Thomas?
Well, I lectured.
Uh-huh.
I'm a Eucharistic minister.
Wow.
And I used to train the lectors here for a number of years. This is our 50th year.
50th year? Wow, congratulations.
Started in
50 years.
1968.
Wow, I was 7.
Okay.
So tell us what you found when you redid the gardens, and we're standing in front of it. I want you to tell our viewers.
This was covered by a bush. So Chris, Oops of the Holy Name, came to clear up. So as we cleaned it, there was the statue. Nobody even knew it was there.
Wow.
And this is the convent, and the convent has been vacated for a number of years, so nothing was done, and the bushes grew all around it. So we found it there, and we also found the bell that belonged to the tower.
It's amazing what you find. If you're like Indiana Jones over here, you found things hidden in the church.
That's right. He's resurrected.
And you basically restored. Look, I noticed that people are putting little pennies and dimes on there just for, I guess, good luck and fortune. So you were talking about the bell, because we just saw the statue that you found.
Right.
And so this is the restored bell right here?
This is it, right here. It was dedicated in 1930.
1930.
Right. And it was in honor of the memory of Christina M. O'Keefe.
O'Keefe.
And it used to be on the tower.
Uh-huh.
They took the tower off. The bell really got lost somewhere along the line. They found the bell and they cleaned it off, and we put it here so that people could see it.
I like that. You know, in Mary Queen of Heaven, we just did an episode on that too, and Monsignor Jamie was with us, and they restored the bell, and the bell was out front too. It's nice to let people know the history of each church.
Right.
And that's a historical moment, and that you kept it and you restored it.
That's right.
Tom, it's a beautiful church. I want to thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes there to tell us about it.
You're quite welcome.
Well, we're back here at St. Thomas with Father Davis and parish historian Christopher Spinelli. Well, guys, this is really beautiful. I mean, the whole look of it. I need you to tell us what's here that you find so amazingly fantastic to you here.
Some of the former priests here at St. Thomas Aquinas, we refurbished their chalices so we can use it, a part of the celebration, the Eucharistic celebration here at St. Thomas Aquinas. And so that's always a beautiful thing for me. But also what I wanted to really show you is the record that we have.
Come on, Chris.
Of the first baptism that was recorded here at St. Thomas Aquinas in 1885.
1885.
I almost feel like I'm not ready to touch these documents.
Wow. Baptismal registry, 1885. That alone is, look.
And of course, our first marriage in January 29th, 1885.
Oh.
They had much better penmanship back then.
Yeah, well, sure, everything was, so do you have any like relics of saints and artifacts that are here?
Definitely. So we do have a relic of St. Thomas Aquinas right up by the tabernacle. We're probably killing them right now.
No, it's okay.
So we do have a relic, a beautiful relic of St. Thomas Aquinas, in which we use actually. We do a novena, and then we use it to bless the people of the parish every day.
Are there any inside the altar as well?
I'm sure that there is, because every altar generally would have a relic in it. And that is a tradition in the church, that there's a relic in the altar.
But this is amazing that you have.
It is, and we're able to use it for the feast, as we said. Normally we have a novena, and after novena, people are able to come forward to venerate the relic of St. Thomas Aquinas. And it's really a great gem for our parish.
Sure. Now, what's the big surprise? Father said something to me, so whose baby is this?
Well, we would like to say that the sanctuary really is Monsignor Brown's baby, our former pastor, who unfortunately passed away about a year ago at a very young age. He started the process when he first came to St. Thomas about 4 years ago now, 5 years ago. He really thought that the church needed some color added to it. It was very gray, it was very dark, the lighting was very dim, and he really wanted to bring some life. He really wanted, I think, the sanctuary to reflect the vibrancy of the parish. So he had asked me one day on the way out of church, he said, because he knew I was an artist, and he said, well, you know, can you just draw something up quickly of what the sanctuary could look like? So I did. I didn't really think much would come of it. And Monsignor Brown was a very impulsive kind of guy, and he called me the next week and he said, you know what, let's do it. Just work up something a little bit more. So I did a painting of the sanctuary, which is still here in the parish, of what it would look like with this color scheme. And we were starting the process of it, unfortunately, when he had passed. So when Father Dwayne became the temporary administrator, he said, you know, we really have to finish Monsignor Brown's dream and let it see it to conclusion. And we were this year able to finish this, and we were dedicating it to Monsignor Brown and all the priests who served here at St. Thomas. But we also had the double blessing of also on that day celebrating the installation of Father Dwayne as the pastor. So it was great that he was able to kind of come full circle and complete his vision, to complete Monsignor Brown's vision, and then also to kind of take the helm of the parish and guide us onward to the future.
You did a great job. You did. And I was going to ask you a question. I just want to know if my memory serves me right. Was the Baptismal Font always there, or was it moved up?
No, well, it's been there for quite, there have been a number of renovations at St. Thomas. I mean, originally that Baptismal Font was just not the original Baptismal Font. That was done in the 60s, but it would have been in the baptismal area.
Yeah.
So we do have a little chapel off to the side, which we now have as a Marian chapel.
Shrine,
Yeah, well, we were talking about,
But
sure.
that's where the Baptismal Font would have been. And then it got moved onto the altar probably in I'm going to say the 1990s.
Yeah, I know a lot of churches we talked about have done that because they want to include everyone in and bringing a new child into the church and all that, which I think is beautiful. Rather than going into a private room, I kind of like that, you know. And I have to say, you did a phenomenal job, and I'm really glad we came here. But do you have a website here?
We do have a website here at St. Thomas. It's St. Thomas Aquinas Brooklyn.com.
Well, I want to thank you, Father Davis, and Chris Spinelli for letting us come here to St. Thomas's. And I want to thank you because I remember talking to you I said from the beginning of the show I was going to come here. And I think it's going to be a great episode. I learned a lot of fascinating things about this church that I didn't know before, and I hope you did too. So if you have any questions about this episode or any other questions, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter or www.netnewyork.tv, or you can write into us at City of Churches, 1712 10th Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11215. Until next time, I'm Anthony Mangano at the City of Churches. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless you. See you on the next one.